Hello, it has been a while since the last video. I think about 2 weeks. I don't know. It depends on when I upload this video. It will either be 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month. I don't know. It has been a while since the last video, and to be honest, for a week, like a week after the video was uploaded, uh, I was kind of burned out because it took a long time to make that video. But you know what? I'm back. I had a bunch of personal things going on these past 2 weeks, but I am back. The grind for Assassin's Creed shall never stop. Now let us talk about Assassin's Creed Shadows today. A game that has gone through development hell as well as critical hell thanks to the blatant racism displayed towards Yasuke and sexism towards Naoe. An unfortunate state of things considering we're in 2025 and these are still things that kind of haunt us. Not haunt actually. It's so blatant that it's almost like we are still hundreds of years backwards. Anyway, actually, before we move on, I should probably set the mood lighting a bit. We're talking about shadows today, so boom. Is that better? I don't know. Maybe it looks bad on the video. I hope not. So let's talk about the state at Ubisoft a little bit. Now, I would say props to Ubisoft Quebec for weathering the storm, and I feel really bad for the devs that have worked on this game and that have poured their heart out for it, only for the for the reaction to be the way it was. I'll be honest, I wasn't too optimistic about Shadows at first myself, not because of the same reasons as most of the vocal majority has been. I wasn't critical of that. The reason that I was skeptical about Shadows was because of the team that was working on it and what they have worked on before. See, Shadows is made by the same team that got us Assassin's Creed Syndicate and Assassin's Creed Odyssey. They also gave us Assassin's Creed 3 Tyranny of King Washington and the Freedom Cry DLC. Two Assassin's Creed games, Syndicate and Odyssey, they have worked on before, that I was not the biggest fan of, to be honest, both in terms of gameplay and story. So you can imagine I wasn't exactly looking forward to Shadows for this reason. I didn't expect the gameplay nor story to be anything great, but boy oh boy was I wrong. I didn't expect the gameplay nor story to be great, and I'm never wrong. Okay, I am never wrong. Okay, that's not true. I am wrong sometimes in some things in life. One of them being deciding to be an AC YouTuber. Where did it all go wrong, I wonder? My crisis aside, you know what? Let's talk about why I think Shadows could be one of the greatest Assassin's Creed games ever made, and why I think it is definitely the most important game for Ubisoft right now. So the situation at Ubisoft is most likely not a secret to you, with multiple flops and an all-time low stock price, and rumors of a potential buyout that kind of fell through because the big man Eve wants to remain control of a company after selling it. That's not how it works, but you know, he wants to remain control of his company when he's not been doing the best with it. But enough about that. Ubisoft has basically been on a downward spiral throughout the last 4 or 5 years. More 4 years, essentially. Valhalla was still a big hit for them, but after that, it's just been downhills. Watch Dogs Legion, didn't sell that well. It not as well as they would have liked. Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, a great game, from what I've heard. I haven't played it yet, but I've seen and heard a lot of great things about it, and I'm very excited to play it. Didn't meet their sales expectations. I mean, you wouldn't expect it to anyway. It's not like they're AAA titles. Avatar was pretty good, but it didn't meet their expectations. Star Wars Outlaws and Skull and Bones is a discussion for another day, and maybe not my channel because I don't want to talk about those games. They're not relevant to me. Now, as a result of all these flops, Shadows is basically a make it or break it game for Ubisoft. A game they absolutely depend on if Yves Guillemot wants to have a company to run. If Shadows fails, the buyout could happen, and Eve will most likely not be in control of the company. Who knows if Tencent will buy it or if someone else will buy it. Anyway, they could sell some of their IPs to stay afloat a while longer. But the most important thing right now, of course, is Shadows. Everything hinges on its success, and to be honest, whether I liked Shadows or not, I would want it. I would want it to succeed, just for the sake of the devs. Actually, not just for the sake of the devs, but also for the absolute masterpiece Ubisoft Montreal is cooking with codename Hexa. Video for another time, because if I start talking about this, I will never stop. I am so excited for Hexa. I need it in my life. Anyway, with last year's Ubi Forward demo, Shadows didn't exactly give off the best first impression, and this wasn't exactly confidence inspiring. But over half a year and 2 decades. Sorry, did I say 2 decades? I mean 2 delays later, because the story trailer dropped, and before that we just had such a big content drought. But all of a sudden, we had the story trailer dropping in January. We had the reviewer embargo, which lifted, and it led to a whole lot of Shadows gameplay and news after an insanely long content drought. And I have to admit, well, we haven't seen enough. We haven't seen enough of the story to know how it'll be. The other half of Shadows, which is the gameplay side, is definitely shaping up to be something absolutely special. So the stealth looks incredible, and Naoe and Yasuke's combat looks amazing. I definitely wasn't expecting to like Yasuke's gameplay, and I will admit, I still don't like his gameplay. Not for the reasons you think. Okay, I am not racist. It's nothing about that. I don't like Yasuke's gameplay because it's not my type of thing. You would expect someone like me who loves Valhalla to like Yasuke's gameplay. I don't like Valhalla because of the epic Viking combat. I love it for the lore implications and just how much it respected the series as a whole and respected the fans for knowing and following the series for so long. Anyway, a topic for another time. I'm getting sidetracked again. So Naoe's gameplay is definitely more my type, and I am sure this is the case for most people. And it also feels like the world kind of makes more sense to explore as Naoe, because there's a lot of stuff that it feels like it's placed there for Naoe. Like the viewpoints, for example, Yasuke can get on them using the stairs, but you would rarely ever want to do that. And most of the stuff in the world is just, it feels like it's more suited towards Naoe rather than Yasuke. But this doesn't mean I will be playing the game as Naoe alone. The ideal way to play the game that the devs want us to do is use both characters based on the situation. Now, unlike Syndicate's Jacob and Evie, Naoe and Yasuke in Shadows, they have entirely different attributes and strengths and weaknesses. And while I didn't plan to play as Yasuke at all, unless they were story-specific missions that were made specifically for Yasuke, after seeing the new gameplay, it's been made pretty clear that both characters have their own advantages, and you will ideally need to switch at some point to continue progressing the story, because you will definitely come across situations that that favor one or the other character, and you'll really come to see why the dual character system in this game works much better than Syndicate. This is what Syndicate should have been. I mean, of course, with Jacob and Evie both being assassins, the execution would have been somewhat different, but Quebec, they nailed it this time with Shadows. Like, it makes sense why you have both characters. I still would have just liked to have one character so that they could have focused all their effort on just one singular character. Yasuke could have been like a side character. I don't care. Anyway, it's too far in development to say that. The game's coming out in about a month, unless they delay it again, which there have been rumors about. I don't think it's happening. I don't think there's going to be another delay. I think that's all just false. So, I haven't played the game, but the difference between the two characters is very evident. So let's talk about the elephant in the room that all Assassin's Creed fans were very curious about when it comes to Shadows and when it comes to Assassin's Creed in general. Oh god, the forbidden word. The parkour. a very touchy topic in the Assassin's Creed community, where one side will chastise you for even uttering a word against Unity's parkour, holding it up like the holy grail of parkour systems, and calling it, the best Assassin's Creed game, or even a great Assassin's Creed game. And then there's the other spectrum of fans, the good guys, the ones that know Unity's parkour is incredibly flawed, which is the nicest way I could put this. It is an exercise in creating the most input lag movement system possible, with the flashiest animations that stutter and make you force the character to do something rather than, working fluidly and
seamlessly.
Whatever your thoughts on the parkour of the series, it is a fact that we haven't had good parkour in Assassin's Creed for over a decade at least. So from what I've seen and heard from people that have played the game, is that the parkour in Shadows is not great. It's unfortunate. This was supposed to be the next gen Assassin's Creed game, the leap, this new era in the series, and the parkour is not great. There is some level of expression in the system, but not exactly anywhere close to before. The dodge button allows for a flashier set of moves. Vaults and ejects off high places become more elegant and just look really cool if you use the dodge button at the edge. However, side ejects are gone, not even to Mirage's extent, which is a shame. I don't know what they're thinking. It's like they take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or most of the time 2 steps forward, 4 steps back. Now, the first impression of the parkour clips wasn't good either. And I'm not saying this is a good parkour system, but it definitely has some very limited form of expression. The grappling hook is a nice addition, as it's physics-based rather than just pressing a button and watching an animation happen like in Syndicate. Though it's not much expression, nowhere near as much as the older games anyway. However, I think for the setting, it works because the map in Shadows is pretty big, not as big as Valhalla or Odyssey. It's about the size of Origins, and the setting doesn't exactly lend itself to the most parkour-dense cities that we would have liked. I also think Ubisoft shot themselves in the foot. I've said this on my Twitter as well. I think they shot themselves in the foot by having the preview demo set in a rural town, because the infrastructure wouldn't facilitate for the best parkour. Even if you had the older game's parkour system, I don't think it would have looked that good or felt that good to move around with with such a setting. So while the parkour is inherently flawed, I'm not saying it's great. I also think some part of the bad impression is due to the fact that this demo was set in a part of the map that didn't facilitate for parkour nearly as much as some of the other parkour dense parts of the map. For example, Kyoto, I imagine, would be very parkour dense, and some other parts of the map perhaps. So the problem, with such a huge map is that not every part of it can be designed to take parkour into account, especially if you want a huge map that is diverse in its towns and cities and environments. But the title of this video isn't a bait and switch. The parkour system in Shadows isn't that great, but that doesn't mean the gameplay itself doesn't have the potential to be one of the best in their series. In terms of the assassin fantasy, I think Naoe has it down to a T. Except the lack of social stealth, it's every time, okay? It's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 4 steps back, something like that always happens with this. So we have the best traditional stealth system in Assassin's Creed game to date. And then they just had to remove social stealth. I would chalk that up to the setting and the lack of the dense crowds that would even allow it to begin with. But it is still a feature that I miss, and I was disappointed to hear it wasn't in the game, because when the traditional stealth has been worked upon so much and is like it's so good, it looks amazing, and it's looking to be the best in the series. The lack of social stealth just doesn't make sense. I mean, look, the last 2 games, Mirage and Valhalla, they brought it back. So Shadows removing it, just I don't know why they did that. They could have implemented a Valhalla-like social stealth system, which is kind of similar to AC1, but you know what? Let's move on. I don't want to sound like a broken record. The traditional stealth in this game looks fantastic. Everything from using the shadows to hiding and going prone. The changing of the seasons and the weather effects that weather that affects the gameplay. The thing with the weather and the seasons is that they initially promised a lot more things would happen, like whether the seasons would affect the gameplay a lot more. But over time, it feels like they're sort of walking back on that, and the effects that changing seasons will have is just not as much as we would have thought. Like, yeah, lakes will be frozen during the winter, and you can't hide in grass. And there's not a whole lot. I mean, you'll have icicles on the roof that'll fall, but there's not a whole lot of things that I would have liked, especially since they're pushing it so hard that there's like a season system. But I wish it just had a little bit more influence in the gameplay. But that's a topic for another day. Now, as much as I wish I knew more about the story, only time can tell whether the story really holds up to the quality of the gameplay. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, Quebec they've managed to exceed expectations. I mean, Shadows is really shaping up to be a fantastic historical third-person stealth game, open world stealth game. I mean, it's almost hard to believe this is the same team that made Odyssey. I mean, you wouldn't think these guys made that game. I mean, technically, half the team is completely new, so the team may not consist entirely of the Odyssey devs, but having half your team consist of industry beginners wouldn't have been confidence inspiring either. Like, if you had to choose between the entire team being like Odyssey devs, people that have worked on a game before, or half of the Odyssey devs and half industry beginners, I would have probably went for the entire Odyssey team to make Shadows, but somehow they've managed to pull it off. And seriously, props to Ubisoft Quebec. This is really, like, this being your first game for a lot of, for half the team, that is a very incredibly proud moment. So anyway, with all I've said, I don't want to make any claims that this is the best Assassin's Creed game, or even the greatest. As a game, in terms of a gameplay standpoint alone, it's shaping up to be pretty good. In terms of gameplay, I think this could be one of the best in the series. That's right, better than Unity. I don't care if you love Unity or think it's got the best parkour in the series. It doesn't. You're wrong. Have better opinion on things. So Shadows is a step in the right direction, and the new and upgraded Anvil engine looks fantastic. I cannot wait to see Hexa, because that game can even better take advantage of the new engine. I am also expecting Hexa to have more advanced movement than Shadows, solely because the setting itself lends itself to dense, parkour-rich environments. But Hexa is a topic for another time, and for now, this is all we have to talk about Shadows. I will be playing the game when it comes out on March 20th, and I expect all of you to do the same, because if Shadows doesn't do well and Hex ends up as a tax write-off, that will be my Joker arc, because I need Hex in my life. There's nothing I have looked forward to as much as I'm looking forward to Hexa, and I've made the conversation about Hexa again in a Shadows video. I apologize. So before I get sidetracked and start talking about Hexa for an hour, I will end the video here. I hope you subscribe, share, and like if you want to, or if you don't do it. I will have to find you, though. I will also be upgrading my setup soon, so expect a video on that. I am getting quite a unique piece of hardware soon, so that should be my next video, unless I decide to finish my Bassam video that I have in the works sooner. So the next video is either going to be the Bassam video or the setup unboxing video. Anyway, let's end before I get sidetracked. So, like if you like, share and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all in the next video. Thank you for watching.